Every empire has a moment of reckoning. For Russia, that moment came with war, sanctions, and isolation. But instead of collapse, it rose. From the ashes of crisis comes the Iron Phoenix. Vast cities emerging in the Arctic, tunnels stretching for miles under Siberia, factories blazing with new technology. This isn't just survival, it's resurgence, and the world is starting to realize it. The return of the empire. For decades, Russia depended on global markets, foreign investors, Western technologies, and imported systems that powered its industries. Then came 2022. Sanctions, isolation, collapse. The world thought Russia was done. Factories halted, foreign companies fled, and the ruble crashed overnight. But what the world didn't expect was how Russia would fight back. Instead of breaking, Russia rebuilt quietly, strategically, and with a single goal: never again depend on the West. Billions of rubles and yuan are now flowing into what Moscow calls the new sovereignty projects. Massive state-funded programs rebuilding everything, from microchip factories to aircraft production, from energy grids to defense hubs. In 2025, over 300 new industrial sites are active, each designed to replace something once imported from abroad. Russia's new strategy is simple: build it at home or build it with allies who won't betray you. The West sees decline, but on the ground, a different Russia is rising. A fortress economy, powered by its own energy, its own weapons, its own data networks. What's rising now isn't just infrastructure, it's a mindset. A Russia learning to live and thrive without the West. The Arctic miracle. Up north, where the ice never melts and the air itself freezes steel, Russia is building its future. The Arctic, once seen as barren wasteland, now called Russia's white gold. Here, the Kremlin has launched one of the most ambitious engineering campaigns in human history, the Northern Sea Route project. This 5,600-kilometer shipping corridor connects Asia and Europe directly through the Arctic, cutting travel time by nearly 40%. For the first time, Russia can bypass the Suez Canal, the Indian Ocean, and Western-controlled choke points. To make it possible, they're building floating ports, nuclear icebreakers, oil terminals, and even entire Arctic towns like Yutrini and Siberia. And beneath the frozen ground, pipelines and fiber cables are being laid to connect this icy frontier to Moscow, Beijing, and beyond. The West thought sanctions would freeze Russia's oil exports, but they only pushed them north into the future. The secret underground. But what truly shocked the world isn't on the surface. In 2024, leaked satellite data revealed strange underground structures, massive tunnels, some stretching hundreds of kilometers. Western analysts call it the subterranean shield, a hidden defense network built deep beneath Moscow, the Ural Mountains, and Siberia. Inside, they say, lie entire underground command centers, supply depots, and rail systems capable of moving troops across the country, even during nuclear war. But it's not just military. Intelligence reports suggest underground data centers, AI labs, and missile control hubs powered by small nuclear reactors. Some analysts believe the system connects directly to Russia's continuity of government bunkers, a Cold War concept reborn for the 21st century. No one knows how deep it goes. Some say hundreds of meters, others kilometers. But one thing is clear: Russia is preparing for something far beyond the surface world. The technology race. While the world focused on Russia's tanks and oil, something else was rising in its tech labs. They call it digital sovereignty, a plan to rebuild Russia's technological independence from scratch. In 2025, Russia launched its own internet, RuNet, a national network that can run independently if global web access is cut off. It's more than censorship, it's survival. Next came satellites. Dozens of new communication and spy satellites launched under the Siberia program, aiming to rival Starlink. Then came payments. MIR, Russia's homegrown banking system, now replacing Visa and MasterCard across millions of users. And now, AI. Russian tech firms are training military-grade AI models on domestic data, building drones, targeting systems, and automated logistics powered entirely by Russian algorithms. Step by step, a digital iron curtain is rising, not to block the world out, but to make sure Russia never collapses again. This is Moscow's new doctrine: build quietly, move strategically, shock globally. Global reaction, the world on edge. In Washington and Brussels, alarm bells are ringing. Intelligence briefings warn that Russia's Arctic expansion and underground megastructures could reshape global power lines, controlling not just energy and shipping, but information itself. Europe's trade routes are threatened. America's military analysts are calling it the Great Reemergence. Some see it as the rebirth of a Soviet-style empire, others as the beginning of a new kind of power, decentralized, invisible, and self-contained. In Brussels, the EU scrambles to invest in alternative shipping lanes through Scandinavia. In Washington, Pentagon planners fear the Northern Sea route could turn Russia into the gatekeeper of Arctic trade, the cold Suez Canal. But halfway across the world, the reaction is entirely different. In Beijing, admiration. China sees a partner who stood against Western pressure and built an entire parallel economy. In Tehran, inspiration. Iran sees proof that isolation doesn't mean defeat. And in Africa, fascination. From Nigeria to Ethiopia, leaders quietly study Moscow's model, how to defy Western financial control and build national resilience. Across the global south, Russia is being watched not as a pariah, but as proof that the Western system can be challenged. A silent realignment is happening, and Russia, once cornered, is suddenly back at the center of the board, the new shadow of power. In 2025, the world expected Russia to fade, a broken empire trapped in its past. But from the snow, steel, and silence, a different story is emerging. In the frozen north, cities glow where there was once only ice, deep underground. Machines hum beneath the earth, guarding secrets of the future. And in the skies, satellites and rockets whisper a quiet message to the world. Russia has always played the long game. Where others see defeat, it sees delay. Where others see isolation, it sees independence. The new Russia is not shouting its power, it's hiding it under the ice, behind the firewalls, beneath the surface. This is not the return of the USSR. It's something far more complex, a hybrid empire of the digital and the physical. And whether the world accepts it or not, a new shadow of power now stretches quietly across Eurasia. The alliance of the unseen. But Russia isn't building this future alone. Behind the scenes, new alliances are forming, away from Western eyes. A quiet network of nations, China, Iran, Belarus, North Korea, and several African partners, are linking together under what some analysts call the New Silk Iron Pact. Their goal? Build a parallel world, independent of the dollar, immune to Western control. Energy pipelines are being redirected east. Trade routes now bypass Western ports. Even currency settlements are being done in yuan, rubles, and digital gold systems. At the center of it all, Moscow. What used to be called isolation is quietly transforming into integration, but on Russia's terms. And while global news focuses on sanctions and war headlines, a new infrastructure of influence is forming beneath the radar, connecting billions of people outside the Western system. The 2020s were meant to be the age of Western dominance. Instead, they've become the decade of silent realignment, and Russia's fingerprints are everywhere. 2030, the silent superpower. The year is 2030. The map of power looks nothing like it did a decade ago. The world that once tried to freeze Russia out now trades through its ports. The nations that mocked its collapse now copy its resilience. From the Arctic's ice ports to the deserts of Iran, from African data hubs to Asian railways, the shadow of Russian engineering and influence stretches silently across the world. But Russia doesn't want headlines anymore. It wants leverage, quiet, stable, and permanent. What began as survival has become strategy. What began as defiance has become design. The question now isn't whether Russia can rebuild, it's whether the world can adapt to what it's becoming. Because while everyone was watching the fall, Russia was preparing for the rise. Russia just shocked the world, and this is only the beginning. The ripple effect. Every action in geopolitics creates a ripple. What began as Russia's fight for survival is now reshaping entire continents. In Europe, nations are quietly reconsidering their alliances. Energy deals once guaranteed by Brussels are being renegotiated through new channels, pipelines that begin in Russia but end far beyond Western reach. In Asia, new financial corridors are forming, Moscow to Mumbai, St. Petersburg to Shanghai, trade settled not in dollars but in local currencies. Even Latin America and Africa are watching, studying how a sanctioned state built parallel systems and thrived. In classrooms, think tanks, and military academies, a new term has emerged, the Russia model. It means resilience through autonomy, power through self-reliance. Across the digital world, engineers are copying the blueprint. National internets, domestic payment grids, independent satellites. What was once dismissed as paranoia is now becoming policy. The shockwave from Moscow's megaprojects didn't just rebuild a nation, it rewired the architecture of the modern world. And now, the question spreads like wildfire in global halls of power. If Russia could do this under pressure, what happens when it's no longer cornered? The unknown future. No one truly knows what comes next. Russia's story has always been written in extremes: tragedy and triumph, collapse and rebirth. The world watches, half in fear, half in fascination, as the nation that was meant to fall rises quietly behind the horizon. Some predict a new golden age of Russian innovation: clean energy from the Arctic, quantum computing from Siberia, space launches from the Far East. Others warn of a darker future, an age of digital isolation, proxy conflicts, and silent information wars. But one thing is certain: the blueprint of global power has changed forever. The West no longer stands unchallenged. The East no longer follows. And between them, in the cold heart of Eurasia, stands a nation rebuilt from ruin. Whether this marks the dawn of a new superpower or the start of a deeper divide, history will decide. For now, the world can only watch, as the silence of the North echoes louder than ever. This is Russia's new chapter, and the story is far from over.